All right, here we go. Welcome, everybody. My name's Andrew. I work for the Oregon Community Food Systems Network, and we're here today. We're doing an info session on round 2 of the Farmer and Rancher Disaster Resilience Grant Program. We are super excited to be continuing this grant program and offering round 2. Had a bunch of success in round 1. Huge thanks to the Oregon Legislature who have put this money through general fund to be able to support farmers and ranchers across the state to make their operations more disaster resilient. We got some of our team members here on the call. We've got Brittany at Friends of Family Farmers, who's been helping develop the program. And we've got Rodrigo, who's our contracted Spanish language support for folks. There's probably other folks in the chat or on the call. Thank you, everybody, for all your work on this. And huge thanks to the network. OCFSN is a network of organizations across the state who support all parts of the food system. And lots of input from the many awesome folks doing this work across the state on this program. So we hope it's making a big impact. Today, we're going to go over the details on round 2, and we're going to kind of share information about the program, what happened the first round, what's changed in the second round, and then go into details about the application, details on the website, what all the information we have up there, details on the application questions, and then we'll close out the recorded portion, and then we'll be able to answer questions that folks have who are here making the effort to learn more and have solid applications so we can answer your questions. So you can find all the materials on our website, ocfsn.org. Right at the top of the navigation, there is the grant section, Disaster Resilience Grant. That's where all the grant materials can be found in Spanish. You can find that as well on the website. That's the place, that's your go-to place as you're filling out the application, trying to find details about the program, the link to the application, all that stuff is there. So to ground us all, the purpose of the grant. The purpose is to fund on-farm disaster resilience projects and plans. We are funding projects, plans, things to make your operation more disaster resilient outside of your general operating expenses or your day-to-day expenses. These are projects that maybe you can't get to, you don't have funding for. We're helping. This grant is to get you ahead of on those and to bring in some extra money for you to be able to do that. The program as it is today was funded in 2023 during the general that long session of the legislature. It's general fund dollars, $2.65 million over 2 years. The first year, we awarded $1.6 million in round 1 to 114 farms across Oregon. Super successful, lots of great information we got, lots of great things that we have refined this program with that first round experience. So we're hoping that this second round is even better. We have about $900,000 in the second round to distribute. So there's a little less money, and it depending on the interest, it could be a little bit more competitive. Let's wait. We're waiting to see on that one. OCFSN, Oregon Community Food Systems Network, manages this program, and we contract all sorts of support from Friends of Family Farmers to administrate and many others to do translations, support for farmers and ranchers who are applying, reviewing your applications, doing outreach, and advising on the program. We have a lot of different folks who are involved in this. This all comes from the 2022 Disaster Relief Program that was tied to the Oregon Disaster Assistance Program. ODA had a program that was launched for the supporting farmers who experienced significant impacts in 2021. That was a loan program, a reimbursable loan program. Our folks in our network advocated for a grant program for small and historically underserved farmers. That was awarded, super successful, and this has been building since then. That was a $1.5 million. We have $2.65 million this round. Who knows what's going to happen in the next legislative session? This could be renewed. We'll see. That's waiting to be found out. There's also, with this grant program, we're connected to two other grant programs that are for disaster resilience and food systems. There's the Food Hub grant program. Food Hub grant program is to support food hubs, improving their disaster resilience infrastructure and worker safety. And then there's a farmers market disaster resilience program that is for improving the resilience of farmers markets specifically. We are one of the big changes in this program compared to the first round is we have one pool of funding this round. We do not have a small and a large pool like we had last time. So I'll get into those details about that. There is some differences in how much you're in the pool if you're asking for under 10,000 or over 10,000. The cap for this round is $20,000 for the ask, and I'll go into all the detail on that. All the materials are translated into Spanish, and we're actually contracting a person in-house to support Spanish-speaking applicants. The goal of the program, we want this to be the goals of the program. We want this program to be as accessible as possible. So we're really on our end trying to make the application really clear, really quick and easy. And we've learned from the first round, we've made some improvements on that. So for y'all's benefit, we're really putting in the effort to make this as easy for you all as possible. The goal is to prioritize small and historically underserved farmers in ranches across Oregon. That's in the statute. Small farmers are the priority for this grant, or it's the focus of this grant. We're prioritizing farmers across Oregon counties most impacted by drought. We're prioritizing veteran farmers. We're prioritizing doing direct outreach to historically underserved farmers, and we're doing our best to give y'all as much support in your application as possible. We have office hours. We'll go over that, where you can come in and talk about your projects with our team. You can reach us at grants@ocfsn.org. That's on the website and also in the slideshow. To ask your questions about your applications. If you're able to put in your application early, we will review the application. And if we have questions or we have concerns about the quality of the application, we'll send it back and let you make amendments with our recommendations. So we're here to help you all. That's the goal. And then in the back end, we're doing our best to do awesome reporting and gathering testimonial on the impact of this funding that has on your operations, your ability to produce food under extreme weather, climate impacts, and report that out to the state, the community, to show just how valuable this funding is and the impact that it has in order to continue this into the future. So we had this program vetted and supported and advised upon by all sorts of different producers from across the state. You obviously know we have a diverse state, diverse amount of production in our state. So we wanted to make sure we had a lot of different input on how this would support you all. We also had experts from OSU Small Farms Program, Extension, OCFSN, Oregon Climate and Ag Network, all advised and helped us improve the program. So details on round two. Here's the timeline. We've got the applications are now open. We're accepting applications starting Friday of last week, November 15th. We are accepting applications through January 17th. It's a 2-month window. So you have lots of time. Y'all here early, getting the information. You have lots of time, but we recommend you get them in as early as possible. We had an influx of applications at the very end of the open period last time, and there was some impacts on our systems. There was impacts in us being able to provide the quality review for you all to make ask questions if you want to improve your applications. If you get them in early, we can review your application. We can help you make the strongest application possible. If you get them in at the end of the deadline, that's how things work. Deadlines are important. If you get them in, that's fine. Get them in early, you might get a little bit more support. March 17th, we will be announcing the awards. In between January and March is when we do all the review with the review committee. We have 14 review committee members who go through all the applications and grade against our rubric. And then we meet to discuss the funding cutoffs and all that. It's likely that we will have more requests than we have funding available. So there will be some folks who aren't awarded funding, and that's just the reality when we have a lot of need and a limited amount of money. And this is something that we report back to the state to show that there's more need in getting more money in the future. So that being said, March 17th, awards will be announced, and then y'all who are awarded will start your application or your acceptance forms. We're trying to get all the funding out by early April. We were a little late on that deadline last time, and we know y'all are early April is still starting to ramp up the season. So just try to get you all the money as fast as possible so you're not getting awarded right when the season starts getting into full swing. But then that being said, you have a full year to complete your projects. And final reporting is due March 30th. We do an interim report in November just to check in on folks and see how their projects are progressing. You're required to complete the projects that you've applied for within that year time. If you have a project that will take longer than that, that's not eligible for the program. And we're wrapping up the interim project reports, the progress reports right now with the round 1 folks. Okay, details on the program and the grant. So we have one pool of funding with a maximum award amount of $20,000. If you are requesting less than $10,000, you can have, so the first round, we saw that folks applied for many different projects. If you're requesting less than $10,000, you can apply for multiple projects. Say you want to do some irrigation improvements, you need some shade cloth, you want to build a shade structure, these types of things. You could apply for, multiple projects to fill up that around $10,000 amount, whatever you're looking for. To support your operations. If you are applying in that $10,000 to $20,000 range, we are requiring that that your application be for a single project. So this is the reason we're doing this, is to focus in for that large dollars amounts for the bigger projects, things like a big pond improvement, a bigger irrigation project, something that costs like a significant amount more money. But we're having that limitation on the higher dollar amounts because we want to get as much money to as many farms as possible. And if folks are applying for a bunch of small projects up to $20,000, we're not going to be able to get as many farms some amount. So this is our compromise, to have a larger dollar amount, but also limiting it to single projects. That being said, if you have a single project, an irrigation project has many components. Of course, those multiple components are part of that larger project. So that's, we're expecting questions on that, and we can walk through those specifics as you have questions on your specific projects, and we can help you with that. If you were awarded funding in round 1, you are ineligible for funding in round 2. Folks, you are ineligible to apply for a second grant. But if you applied and were denied funding, if you didn't get awarded, or you were under the threshold of where we had to cut off funding, then you are totally eligible to apply in this second round. So if you were awarded funding in the first round, you are ineligible for funding in the second round. Some other quick details. We reserve the right to award partial funding. We ended up having to do that in the first round to get more money to more farms. We don't like doing that. We're trying to set it up so we don't have to do that. But we just have to make sure that that's clear, that you may get a partial funding for, say, one project and not all of them. There's no requirement for matching funding. So you're not needing to bring in dollars from another source to match the amount of money that we're giving in this grant program. You can do your full project with this funding. You don't need to bring in other dollars. You will receive upfront payment, and then you will be able to implement your project with that money. You are then required to submit a final report to show us that that money was spent on this project, or whatever projects you were funded. Your projects must be for the purpose of disaster resilience on your operation. If you are looking at other sources of funding, federal funding, NRCS funding, these types of things, let us know, and we can help you try to get this as a cost share to support that expanded projects, expanded conservation projects, or whatever you're looking at. This can be a source of other funding for those bigger federal dollars. Okay, to be eligible for the program, you must operate a farm and ranch in Oregon and derive a portion of your farm income from that farm, your income from that farm, and you must be involved in the day-to-day operations of your farm. This is focused on food and seed production over other types of activities. So education farms, these types of things are not eligible. Small and underserved producers in Oregon are eligible if they are, there's an income cap. If you're under $350,000 in your farm sales, you are eligible for this program. If you are over that, you are ineligible. The focus for this is small farmers. That $350,000 cap is our way to ensure that. We do require documentation to show that your farm is under that income line, and we prioritize the Schedule F on line 2 is what we look at to show that you're making your farm sales are under that $350,000 line. We learned a significant amount about the differences of what people are filing for their different operations. Round 1, we did not accept a Schedule C, sole proprietor tax filing. This round, we will accept Schedule Cs. That being said, we will also need some other verification of farm sales with that Schedule C. So, because that information is just not provided on a Schedule C, and we are trying not to we don't want to fund other businesses. This is solely for farms. So we'll be working with folks who have a Schedule C that will need to provide other documentation, things like receipts, sales receipts, farmers markets, stall registration, these kinds of things. We'll work with individuals on those case-by-case basis. So we are able to support farmers that are not filing a Schedule F. Farm nonprofits are not eligible for this grant unless there's some specific criteria met, that their produce sales are or donations are the majority of their income, and that nonprofit also is under that $350,000 income line. If you're a farm nonprofit, we can talk through those details with you. And then BIPOC farmers, immigrant refugee farmers, trans and gender nonconforming farmers, single caregiver farmers, farmers that produce culturally significant food, are drought impacted, veteran farmers, and environmental justice producers. There's a whole bunch of demographic information here are prioritized, meaning that these farmers get some extra points in the rubric, and we'll go through the rubric. Here's the rubric. So this is what you want to be looking at as you're putting together your application to get as many points as possible. This is how the Grant Review Committee reviews every application, puts a point total on your application, and that's how we are able to fund the highest quality projects and able to distinguish between projects and applications. So there's the requirements at the top, and then the points for the different priorities. So there's the eligibility at the top. These are requirements. Then there are the points for priorities of different demographics and historically underserved farmers. In the guidelines document, we have all the definitions and all the details on all that, on all those priority points and how those are determined. And then lines 12 and 13 for the rubric are how the review committee is going to be grading the impact of the disaster resilience project and how you are able to show the budget quality and the preparation for the project. So this is really important in this. There are some narrative questions in the application around the disaster resilience impact and the strategies that you're implementing. We need you to go into as much detail. We've removed any word limit as much detail as possible of how your project will make your farm more disaster resilient. That's where how the review committee is able to understand what you're asking dollars for and how to give you as many points in the rubric as possible. And then for the budget, number 13, be really clear about what you're purchasing. Describe say you're purchasing irrigation materials. Be as clear as you can with the dollar amount, what you're asking for, these types of things. And you can ask us in the email. You can email grants@ocfsn.org to ask about the budget details. And make sure your budget adds up at the end. Just be really clear on that. It really helps the grant review committee members have a good sense of what your project is and what you're asking for. If you just kind of put like $10,000 for irrigation improvement and that's it, it's really hard for us to understand what your project is. And then we ask that kind of share some information about how your project has been prepared. Have you prepared for your project, and that the timeline is achievable, so that you've thought through. There's some longer term projects, a well drilling project or a pond improvement where there's you have to get permitting and review. And if you haven't thought through how you're able to get through that process in the year timeline, makes it harder for us. You'll get less points in that if you're clear about how you just planned for that process in this application. So the fun part of types of projects that we're funding in this program, it's super broad. You can be, we're leaving it up to you. You all are the experts on your operation. You know what you need to make your operations more resilient. We leave it up to you, but we do have some categories and some in the review the guidelines document. We have a whole list of ideas of potential projects. You don't have to have a project on that list. There's plenty that we didn't cover, but it's a good starting point to go check that out. But the general categories are irrigation and water efficiency, shading and cooling, soil health management, ecosystem management, crop management changes, equipment purchase, rental, or refurbishment, and on-farm planning, monitoring, and research. And some examples of all that. Changing your irrigation system to a drip system or micro irrigation, purchasing shade cloth for your high tunnels, caterpillar tunnels, purchasing greenhouses of some sort, moving to a reduced tillage operation, different mulching techniques, purchasing compost to improve soil health, tree planting to provide shade, doing some purchasing weather stations to be more on top of your monitoring of temperature and your greenhouses, soil moisture monitoring, all sorts of different things. There's a lot of different options. Also, we found that folks generally knew what they needed. They wanted equipment, they wanted materials. A very few in the first round applied for planning or research or monitoring. Those are options too, though. If you need to be working on a conservation plan, or you want to have a evacuation plan if you're in a fire danger area, those are also eligible. Okay. I wanted to go through, so that's some of the main details. Probably going a little fast. We'll definitely get through some questions here after we are gone. I see there's some questions in the chat, or a question in the chat. But the next thing I want to do is just walk through the website with you all and walk through the questions in the application. So we got the website. Okay, folks can see that. So this is the website. You also can find the Spanish website here just below. and some details about the program, details about the projects, like I just mentioned. This is our definition of resilience. You know, it's
Andrew, it's still on the other, it's not on the actual website yet.
oh, okay. What is it on?
It's on the presentation website, yeah.
Let me fix that. Thank you. How's that?
Yep, that's good.
So here's our website, OCFSN.org, disaster resilience. You can find it up here, navigate to the top. There's some details about the program, details about the types of projects. Here's our definition of resilience. You know, there can be, resilience can be broadly defined. We are really focusing on the projects. So disaster resilience projects for this grant program. We need to see that this is something outside of your farm's general operations, that is something that you can implement that will improve your farm's disaster resilience. And then this part here, we got this pig, is where you'll find all the details. We've got the program overview. This is if you're sharing information with folks, it's kind of just like the one page of top line details. Grant guidelines. This is where you're going to go to find all the details on the grant program. Here's that here. You're going to find all the things that I discussed, the timeline, allowable expenses, impact, the eligibility and scoring rubrics, all that stuff that I just went through. You'll find the, but in more detail. As you're applying, please read through the guidelines document. There are details in here that will support you in having a really successful application. The counties that we're prioritizing that are drought impacted, questions around the impact of the strategies of your projects. Here's the review rubric that you just saw. That's all here. Here's our list of types of projects that you could implement on your operation. And then we have at the bottom here the actual application questions. So the detail, and that's for you. I want to be really, really strongly recommend this. Please create a separate document, write all the answers to these application questions in a separate document. When you are ready to submit your application, then click on the link that goes to our application form and copy in your answers to those questions. We had a couple people last round who just started right in the form, would write their questions. Something happened, you know, we use a third-party provider. We can't control every detail about that form. You know, or can't control every detail on your computer. Something happened, they lost their questions, they'd have to start over. Please have a separate document with all your questions in there and then copy them in. This will save you time. It will save any potential heartache if you lose your questions and have to start over. We don't want that to happen. So we have the directions, and then we have all the questions, and we'll go through this. First, we have like just contact information. So we are able to contact you with our questions or to give you an announcement that you've been awarded funding. Then we want to know about your farm. This is for reporting purposes. This doesn't have an impact on your application and being awarded the funding, but we want to know what region you're in, the number of cultivated acres, how long have you been in our operation as a farmer. And we need to know a little bit about your operation. What do you produce? Where do you sell it? These types of things. This is important for us when we're reporting back to the state of, you know, where money is going across the state, what kind of operations are being funded, what kind of farmers are being funded, beginning farmers, more experienced farmers. It's just really important data for us to show the impact of this program. Then the preference points questions. We have all the details here on BIPOC farmers, immigrant refugee farmers, trans and gender nonconforming, caregiver, military veteran, details on if you produce culturally significant food. And that's in keeping with individual and or communities' cultural beliefs, practices, and customs. So very specifically, this question, we're asking if you are working with a specific community following those cultural practices to deliver culturally significant food to Oregon's BIPOC and immigrant and refugee communities. And environmental justice preference points is really important one. We want to make sure we include. This is really going to cover a lot of folks, those folks who are in rural communities, low income communities, communities that are adversely harmed by environmental or other health hazards, seniors, youth, persons with disabilities. If you are any of these, you will be getting preference points through the Oregon State definition of an environmental justice community. So you can look at that. And if you have questions on that, please let us know. Eligibility, you have to say yes to these questions in order to be eligible for this grant program. You must have a farm located in Oregon. You must derive a portion of your income from your farm business. You must be involved in the day-to-day operations, and you must be prioritizing food or seed production. And then here's the question around your, if you are considered a small farm. We're not asking for Schedule Fs or Schedule Cs in the application. We ask that in the acceptance form, but it's up to you to make sure that you have those documents. Otherwise, if you don't and you get awarded funding and then you aren't able to provide those documents to us, you will not get the funding. So please make sure that you have those documents before applying. And again, reach out to us if you have any questions. We're here to help you be successful in this. And then these questions here around project justification. How will this project help your farm be more disaster resilient? If you're requesting funding for equipment, please explain how the equipment improves on farm disaster resilience. This is where we really want to see that your farm, how this project makes your farm more disaster resilient. Be clear on the impact that you're experiencing. Say you have, you need season extension, extreme weather is impacting both ends of your season. And these greenhouse projects with cooling and heating will then extend your season. Be really clear about what this funding would do to make your farm more resilient, be able to produce food in adverse conditions. Make sure that you're able to complete the project or projects before the March 30th, 2026 deadline. Share with us any key milestones. Say you are getting you're applying for a pond project and you need to get a remove fill permit. Like, when is that happening in the timeline for your project? So think through how the timing, some projects are really straightforward. You're going to buy the equipment, you're going to install it, it'll be done. And you can explain that really clearly. If there's more complicated, we need to see the timeline for that. And then just a short question here about how have you prepared? What have you done? What have you experimented with on your farm to know that this is a good disaster resilience project? These types of things. And then your budget. We provide you a budget template, and I'll show you down here. It's in the guidelines document, but we have it in a Word doc format and an Excel spreadsheet format. And it has different components for labor costs, equipment costs, professional services, materials, and you'll be breaking up your budget into those. And I'll go into the budget here at the end. These are just questions about the different amounts that you're asking for those different categories. And then finally, these are not related to eligibility. These are questions that are for just us to understand a little bit more about how you heard about the grant program. If you're asking for cost share, if you're applying for other federal funding that you're using this grant program for, if you prioritization of projects. So if you're asking for multiple, what is your top priority? If we do end up having to do partial funding, again, we really don't want to do that. But if we end up having to, we want to make sure that we're funding your top priority project. And then if you wouldn't be willing to share a testimonial about what the funding would do to impact your farm's disaster resilience. And then feedback. We want to hear from folks about the process. If what was hard, what didn't work, what would you recommend changing in the future? All right, here's our budget. There's directions on here, and then so basically you have the expense category, how much you're asking for in that expense category, and then a description. So and we've got an example here. So we've got, okay, you're looking for shade cloth, $500. This is to cover greenhouses, emitters, $1,000 to improve drip irrigation, want a compost spreader. So basically you're listing the materials, the equipment, the professional services. Say you need to make an evacuation plan, details on how much that would cost. This is something that I thought of earlier, and I am just remembering again. Costs during the first round of this program, many people applied for a certain amount, and the costs went up. This is the reality of the world that we're living in. We need to be thinking about that, and I encourage you to be thinking about this as you're applying. You're applying here in November, December, you wouldn't be getting money until next year in the summer. The cost of things may change. Either give yourself a little buffer, think about the impact of that on your projects. It's not something that we can really address in the process of the grant application, but know that that's a potentiality. We've had multiple projects having to reduce what they're doing, figure out how to get something cheaper, all these types of things in order to, because we are unable to grant more money. We're using the rest of the grant program for this round. There's no more money available. So if the cost is more for your project, we have to figure out a creative way to complete your project as you have said in your proposal. So yeah, we'll work with you on that. We've had to make budget amendments with folks. It's gonna happen, but just think about that in the future, or think about that as you're applying. How can you build a little bit of resilience into your project request if costs go up? And you do what you can. We'll work with you on it. We're here to support you. And then, yeah, funding for labor is eligible. So, you need to install irrigation system. You need someone to dig some trenches. We can support you in funding for that. We are unable to provide funding for labor for general operations. Again, this is all for projects on general operations. So if hiring a harvester is not an eligible expense. And that is that. And we'll go back here. And yeah, if you have questions around the grant, feel free to reach out. We'll answer questions here in the webinar. And then if you follow up, grants@ocfsn.org. We are in this round, we are offering office hours. So Tuesdays, 8 a.m. to 9 a.m. we are offering office hours. You can find details on how to join those office hours on the website. And it'll be first come, first serve basis. So show up right at 8 and you'll be able to get support from our team answering your questions and helping you with your project. These will be weekly, except for holiday days from this coming Wednesday up until I think it's January, I forget, the 13th or something like that. So that's what we got. I hope that was helpful for you all.